A few months ago, I was doing what I typically do on any given day, wasting my time scouring the internet, when I happened upon a screenshot of this tweet. Taco Bell is coming out with a vegan menu. Burger King is trialing a vegan burger. Carl's Jr. has a vegan burger on the menu. Ben & Jerry's has a ton of vegan ice creams. And y'all want to tell me veganism isn't on the wave? That vegans don't make a difference? LOL. This tweet was off-putting to me right off the bat. Not because of the pro-vegan message, or even the condescension, but because of the implications of what this tweet defends. Corporations. It's time vegans address cultural capitalism. I'm not arguing for or against any of the philosophical and ethical framework of veganism, but rather I'm discussing how capital is co-opting veganism and what this means for the vegan community. Even if you aren't vegan or even vegetarian, or someone who eschews anything for ethical reasons, I invite you to stay and listen, because the theory I'm discussing can be related to all of today's mainstream radical movements, since they too are being co-opted by capital, such as the queer, environmental, and feminist movements. So let's take a look at the claims in this tweet. So yes and no. This claim isn't wrong, but it is slightly misleading. Taco Bell isn't adding any new items onto the menu, as this Thrillist article points out, with some sort of copywriting. Taco Bell has long been a fast food establishment for the veg heads to get their junk food fix. It's a pretty reliable option if you're on a road trip or if you need a quick meal on the go. The trick to make it plant-based is to sub black beans for meat, ask for no cheese or sour cream, and add guac, because you should always add guac. The only change that Taco Bell is adding is that they are now advertising this open secret, putting the vegetarian options on the menu and adding a make it meatless function on their mobile app. It's a PR move, if anything, and it makes sense from the perspective of capital. Taco Bell is ringing their dinner bell saying, "Ring-a-ding-ding! Vegetable eaters, come buy our food!" Yeah, that was the best I could do. Burger King is cashing in on the Impossible Burger hype. On this CNN business article I found, the president of Burger King North America says, Burger King hopes to give somebody who wants to eat a burger every day, but doesn't necessarily want to eat beef every day, permission to come into the restaurants more frequently. As a Guardian article on the subject notes, Burger King has already had a veggie burger on their menu for years. Kellogg's Morningstar brand, in fact, which albeit has egg in it, it didn't receive nearly as much press as the Impossible Whopper. But yeah, they've had a veggie burger on their menu for years, so definitely cashing in on the hype. It's good money too. Carl's Jr. Also added a vegan patty to their menu, which is the Beyond Meat Burger. The CEO of Carl's Jr. parent company, CKE Restaurants, says, "We know that people are looking for options. In fact, roughly 1/3 of consumers identify as flexitarians, and we're thrilled to partner with Beyond Meats to bring more delicious, irresistible flavors to our menu. The new Beyond Famous Star is a true..." And okay, I don't really want to finish reading that because it's just press. So, like Burger King, they want people who don't want to eat meat an option to buy their product. It makes sense from a business perspective. Lastly, we have Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's has had their non-dairy frozen dessert line since 2016. Non-dairy options have been around for some time, but the options were few and not always great. So passionate consumers petitioned for non-dairy line on change.org and got around 28,000 signatures. Giving credit where credit is due, Ben & Jerry's were ahead of the curve. They were one of the first animal-based food product companies to explore the relatively new territory in the American market. The most interesting part of their PR move is not the non-dairy angle, but the 100% vegan certified angle. So what's up with this vegan.org certification? So what vegan.org has to say about this certification is the certified logo is a registered trademark, similar in nature to the kosher mark, for products that do not contain animal products or byproducts and have not been tested on animals. This detail is important, and we're going to talk about it later in the video, so keep it in mind. The claim that the availability of plant-based options and the burgeoning ubiquity of plant-based milks is only because veganism is on the rise is a dubious one to me. In fact, the increased prevalence of non-dairy milks can be directly attributed to the fact that 65% of the world's population is lactose intolerant, especially in peoples of East Asian, West African, Arab, Greek, and Jewish descent. Corporations don't want to alienate a demographic, but rather integrate that demographic into their consumer base. It's not a bad thing that there are more and more options for vegans. It's actually great that more people are conscious of their meat consumption. I don't have a shred of an issue with people sharing animal products whenever they're able to. Taking for granted the facts that back up the environmental impacts of industrial livestock farming, as well as the ethical concerns for animals, it is wonderful that people are choosing to eat less meat. So if I don't have any issues with the claims made by the tweeter about the food that the restaurants are serving, what's the point of me making this video? Well, I think the details as to why these restaurants are choosing to do it provide a lot of insight that will help us with our argument. So the issue at hand here is not that there is more options for vegans to eat at fast food restaurants, it's why there are more options for vegans to eat at fast food restaurants. And that deserves to be interrogated. Corporate interest in veganism is certainly interesting to research. Brands that you come to be very familiar with and enjoy end up giving you a bad taste in your mouth after learning what corporations own them. Corporations are not turning over a new leaf. Rather, they are continuing with their opportunist behavior. ConAgra CEO Sean Connolly stated that they believe that the plant-based meat industry could generate $30 billion each year. In the Guardian article, The Unstoppable Rise of Veganism, the author lays out the statistics quite simply. From 2006 to 2016, there has been a 350% increase in numbers of vegans in Britain and 185% increase in vegan programs launched in the UK between 2012 and 2016. This isn't about morality or ethics. This is about capital. About 5 or more minutes on Google revealed to me that some of my favorite brands are owned, usually by acquisition, or funded by massive corporations. When I was researching Beyond Meat last year, I discovered that it was funded by the venture capital fund Cleveland Avenue, which was founded by the former CEO of McDonald's, who is, by the way, also on the board of directors of Beyond Meat. In its last round of fundraising in 2017, Beyond Meat secured $55 million in capital, a sizable amount of that coming from Tyson Foods. And when Beyond went public, its stock went soaring. Other searches will show that Morningstar Farms, a vegetarian and sometimes vegan brand, is owned by Kellogg Company. Earth Balance, a vegan buttery spread whose website claims Earth Balance is based in Boulder, Colorado, where fresh mountain airs keep us motivated to spread a conscious and rewarding way of living. And Gardein, who makes a plant-based meat substitute, whose websites say, "We believe eating more plant-based foods builds good health and is good for our planet too," were both acquired by Pinnacle Foods, who was a subsidiary of Hillshire Brands until it was bought out by ConAgra in 2018 for $10.9 billion in cash and stock. In late 2017, Field Roast, a plant-based sausage company, was acquired by Maple Leaf Foods, Canada's largest meat processing company, for $120 million. Heck, even Nestle is launching their own plant-based patty in the US under the brand Sweet Earth called the Awesome Burger. Not particularly clever there, but if that's what they cared about, then I don't think they would be so flippant about their role in child labor. That's what I'd like to call a trademark Synecdoche spicy hot take. If you're skeptical of my spicy hot takes claim, you could see Nestle's defense of child labor on their own website. Another part of the tweet's claim that I take issue with is that veganism is on the rise. And, I mean, yeah, but I think there's a ceiling that it's going to hit. Especially in capitalism. I don't think veganism will progress because the way most vegans look at progress is through a liberal framework, which really puts a lot of faith into markets and supply and demand. Even if I'm wrong about that, and veganism does become popular just based off of ethical arguments by itself, I think there are some things that we need to address. I still think there are power structures that we need to look at and we need to analyze and deconstruct. These are power structures telling us to consume, and these power structures benefit off of us consuming both vegan diets and meat-eating diets. So I think vegans need to take a more radical approach. Some good old Marxist theory. So when we're talking about cultural capitalism, I think recuperation is something we need to talk about. Recuperation is a term coined by Guy Debord. In his Situationalist International Manifesto, Debord states that in the rigged arena of official culture, radical and revolutionary concepts are defanged and twisted by the conservative hegemony. That's a hard one to say for me, I don't know why. And then, once these movements have been deprived of their role in the production of new values, they end up serving as a reserve pool of intellectual labor from which the bourgeoisie can draw individuals capable of adding innovative nuances to its propaganda. Du Bois was writing this in the post-war 50s, battling with the question of why the revolutionary working class movements that hoped to overthrow the exploitative economic structures only registered partial local successes. So what we're dealing with is radical ideas that pose a threat to cultural hegemony, are annexed and co-opted by bourgeois society through the commodification of such radical ideas. Take a look at punk culture, or feminism, or environmentalism, or queer pride, or even socialism. There's a really great video by the RSA on a Zizek lecture titled First is Tragedy, Then is Farce. Zizek argues that in today's capitalism, a cultural capitalism, there's a tendency to bring consumption and ethical action together into the same cluster. That is, the ethical action is included in the purchase. The example he uses is when buying a cup of coffee from Starbucks, you're buying into a coffee ethic. Starbucks is sourcing their coffee from fair trade farms, ostensibly ensuring that the farmers that grow the coffee are receiving a fair price, treatment, and so on and so on. Starbucks puts a lot of effort into cosplaying as an ethical entity. Even their water bottles are branded as ethos. A quick Google search of Starbucks coffee farmer exploitation will reveal a laundry list of ethical violations. Yet the assurance that Starbucks gives you, truth or lie, invites you to do something good for the poor farmers of the global south buying their coffee, neutralizing any ethical concern you have for the consumption of it. It makes you feel like you're doing something righteous. I have to give credit where credit is due. It is some genius level manipulation that requires major disavowal of ethics on Starbucks' end. The reason this is salient is because when we go back to the vegan.org logo that Ben & Jerry's employs, we're not just buying vegan ice cream, or vegan sausage, or shampoo, or lotion. We're buying into a vegan ethic. Ben & Jerry's doesn't need that vegan.org logo on their almond milk ice cream. It's almond milk and labeled as non-dairy. The only thing the vegan logo adds to it is the commodification of the vegan identity. As Peter Coffin regularly discusses in his videos, this commodification of identity is a cultivated identity. Identity is important to all of us, no matter what some bitter and aggrieved person says. Who and what you are is an important part of the self. Identities are politicized whether we consent to that or not. Our gender, our ethnicity, our culture, our ists and our isms, they're all very personal and we're protective of them. Not only that, but we like to express our identities. The nefarious nature of cultivated identity is that capitalism has developed a way in which to exploit our identity and our desires to express our identities. The internet's response to corporate branding during this year's Pride Month shined a light on it, calling it rainbow capitalism, which is great. I'm glad a large movement became conscious of that. The modern movement for queer rights and acceptance has been an uphill battle for the last 50 years. Now that Pride is a mainstream event, corporations want to cash in on it. It is not typically as blatant as that. It's much more subtle and obfuscated in daily life. It would not be as effective if we were conscious of it and didn't cooperate with it. Capitalism is rapacious, indifferent, and inhuman. I don't want the takeaway of this video to be that there are individuals or even corporations that are solely responsible for the exploitation in our society. There are certainly people that can be blamed for giving orders, making decisions, and intentionally exploiting others, but it doesn't really help that much. That is something that a liberal framework would argue for. For example, a liberal solution would be to protest through boycott or petition. So I'm not saying these are things that we shouldn't do, but they are half measures. But unfortunately, these individuals and corporations are operating within a structure that enables and encourages this exploitative and unethical behavior. The goal of the capitalist is to profit and grow exponentially. Even more so is that we participate and cooperate with the corporations that we criticize as unethical. To quote Mark Fisher's Capitalist Realism, what needs to be kept in mind is both that capitalism is a hyper-abstract and personal structure, and that it would be nothing without our cooperation. The most Gothic description of capital is also the most accurate. Capital is an abstract parasite, an insatiable vampire and zombie maker, but the living flesh it converts into dead labor is ours, and the zombies it makes are us. We cannot defeat and dismantle exploitative structures through consumption. There needs to be an end to the lie that supply and demand by itself can change structures. I'd like you to say it with me. Voting with your dollar is a neoliberal lie meant to get us to continue to consume while neutralizing our ethical concerns. Well, that was a bit wordy for the mantra I wanted, but I think we get the gist. The only true way to defeat unethical structures is to organize against them, to unite and destroy. So you've gotten this far and you still may be asking yourself, what's the point of this? So what? I'm still here. So you better wrap this up with a nice bow, baby boy. First of all, thank you for calling me baby boy. I find that very endearing. Veganism is more than what you consume. And while if you're a vegan, you likely already know that. But I would like to posit that there is additional praxis one should make that is more than just eschewing animal products. For one, spreading the consciousness around cultivated identities in your communities, even if you're not vegan or vegetarian. You should join your local community garden, buy your food from farmers markets when you're able to, vote for candidates on the left who support unionization and workers' rights, and organize with others to help agricultural and slaughterhouse workers. I think there needs to be a lot more solidarity with agricultural and slaughterhouse workers, since they are some of the most underpaid and vulnerable workers in society. Vegans and non-vegans alike really need to fight for slaughterhouse workers' rights, since when looking at the industry more holistically, you'll see that the employment is more coercive than choice. Slaughterhouses typically have a high turnaround, high frequencies of workplace injuries. Workers will suffer from PTSD and other psychological disorders from the emotionally distressing environment, long and grueling hours with little to no breaks, and low wages resulting from the exploitation of migrant labor. We can make society better through educating ourselves and others, coming together as communities, respecting and accepting others, and organizing to dismantle unfair and exploitative structures to create a system that is more democratic and fair. A society controlled by the people, not by profit. And as vegans, I think it's suffice to say, we have to take a hard look at the exploitative economic system that has created the factory farm system that we have now. Thank you everyone for taking time every day to listen to me talk. This was my first video, and I really enjoyed making it. Feel free to comment any constructive criticism or just what you liked about it. I'd really appreciate that. If you like what you heard today, please hit subscribe, share with your friends, family, peers, acquaintances. I'll be coming out with more videos covering a broad range of leftist topics and philosophy. So thanks again. Till next time.